Hello, everyone. This is Darsonovia here. This is my review on Dune Messiah, the second book of the Dune Saga. Now, this is my review on the second book in the series. It was released in 1969, and it was received in an interesting way. People, back then just didn't really understand Dune Messiah. It was misunderstood, and various people, like the person that people talk about when it comes to the hero's journey, didn't like it, honestly, and felt, it went against, the hero's journey. And honestly, I think anyone that thought that Paul Atreides was a hero didn't understand Dune, or missed one of a key passage in the first, novel of Dune. The Fremen don't fall into the hands of a hero. Now, if you know anything in history, hero worship is a bad thing, and could be a bad thing, and charismatic figures have been responsible for the biggest, killings in history. Adolf Hitler, Mussolini, etc. So, Paul Atreides, even though he seems to be a hero when you first read Dune, when you reread the first novel of Dune and reread Dune Messiah, Paul Atreides is far from being a hero. He's a human being, and that's the point. And I feel like going against the hero's journey was a brilliant idea for the sequel. Dune Messiah, subverting, the hero's myth, was a good decision on Frank Hubert's part. Because I felt like, okay, Paul Atreides, avenged his father. He defeated, the Harkonnens. He basically became the emperor of the universe. Where do you go from here? And I feel like Paul Atreides, being a despot, I feel like was the most logical, basically direction to take Paul's story. This book is pretty much the end of Paul Atreides' story. I mean, I feel like this book, the way his story ended was logical. And something that isn't explored very often, in, the books that take place after the hero wins, is what happens after the hero succeeds in his goals. What happens afterwards? This book is one of the few occasions that explores that answer. And I do know for certain that people now would not tolerate Dune Messiah. Though they would compare what they did to Paul Atreides, at least Frank Hubert, as character assassination. That Paul would never do that. Never do the things that he did. And, well, Dune Messiah goes against the hero's journey. And I love it for it. And some people I know in the comment sections may say, but you're okay with Paul Atreides going this direction, but not Luke Skywalker? Okay, let's address, Paul Atreides versus Luke Skywalker. Paul Atreides in the first novel, he knew the future that, his jihad could potentially take him. Paul Atreides could have stopped the jihad before it happened, and he didn't do it. Paul Atreides, the kind of character he was made to be at the very start, was never meant to be a hero. Paul Atreides isn't Luke. And not to mention, Paul Atreides didn't follow the typical hero's journey. In the first book, he did, but the sequel, I felt like gave the character more depth. Luke Skywalker, and, honestly, let's be honest here, wasn't that interesting of a character until, Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. Which gave the character, more depth than he had in the first movie. Paul Atreides, there was a lot to go around with this character. What made him interesting in the first book, I think he's more interesting in the second book, personally, is the fact that he's a flawed human being, that just because he was a hero to the Fremen, and basically they look at him as a living god, that Paul, was, a hero. And the fact is he isn't. This book, I feel like, does a brilliant job of, showcasing just how human this character is. Because it's very rare that we see this side of a hero explored. Honestly, it's very rare. Especially back in the 1960s, where you didn't see people subvert this that much. This is something you'd more likely see George R. R. Martin do like over 30 years later. Frank Herbert did it like long before George R. R. Martin did it. And the political intrigue in this book and everything about it was interesting. Even though Dune Messiah is the shortest book in the Dune Saga, in my opinion, in some ways, I feel like it surpassed the first Dune book, honestly. With the little amount of material there was in that book compared to the first one, there's a lot to actually absorb. And I feel like this book has a lot of misunderstood things about it. And a lot of readers who read this book back when it came out did not understand Dune Messiah. And honestly, this book is definitely, in my opinion, just as good as the first one, if not better in some ways. And this book makes me want to read Children of Dune. Dune Messiah, for me, is a great sequel to Dune. I felt like it took the story to a new direction and actually expanded upon, the world of Dune. And Paul Atreides, he could have gone, the direction of making Paul into a Jesus-like figure, making him, the King Arthur-like figure. But he didn't go that direction. Frank Herbert made Paul Atreides into a flawed human being. And honestly, that's what makes Paul interesting. And that's what makes his story tragic in a way. That Paul, someone that's worshipped as a god, is nothing more than a man. And that's what I love about this book. I feel like this book completed his arc perfectly. Something that started in the first Dune book and ended beautifully in Dune Messiah. I know there's other things in this novel I could talk about, but I figured the elephant in the room had to be discussed regarding Paul Atreides. I don't want to spoil most of what's in this book, but I do think if you love the first Dune book, read the second one, with an open mind. And if you like, the kind of story where it subverts what is previously established, you're going to not be disappointed. In fact, this is why I feel like this book has held up as well as it has over the years. Because a lot of books played it safe. This didn't. And I will give props to Frank Herbert. He was a genius who fully understood, politics and philosophy. This book, honestly, Dune Messiah is something I would eagerly read again. It is definitely much better the second time. And the third time I read it, I'll probably find some stuff I didn't even know the second or first time. Dune Messiah is a great book. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. The first book is a great novel. The second one is in some ways even better. I give this a classic rating. Check this out. You're not going to regret it. Next time I review a novel, it's going to be the sixth book of The Wheel of Time, Lord of Chaos. May we live long and prosper, and see you guys next time with another video. Later.